What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to The Standard. Today we have Steve Marlow. I'm super excited to bring Steve Marlow on. He's a lot different than any of the guests that we've had before, but he's been one of the biggest influences in off the field's life, my life, and I think everyone, coaches, kids, athletes, and players, I think everybody will take a lot from this. So, Steve, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Man, it's good to be here. It's good to be here. So here's a question I got for you. So we've talked about this.
Yeah.
How long have we talked about this podcast? Matter of fact, I remember that first house you had. I don't know what I was doing at your house. Walk into your spare bedroom, your kind of office, and you got this little mic sitting on this desk. You're like all excited because, hey, man, I'm getting ready to do this podcast. You know,
That was pre-COVID.
And then look at this, man.
Yeah.
This is, and I've watched a number of podcasts, and man, you guys are killing it. The production, this room, and I think back to when you and I first talked about this as an idea, and look where it's at now. It's so cool.
I mean, the crappy thing is it's like some of the things you say, it takes a few times before I start doing it. No, two things. I think number one, it's like with anything, I feel like when you first start it, you feel nervous. I think it's like that imposter syndrome, you know? It's almost like, hey, everybody's doing a podcast. What are my friends going to think? You know what I mean? And so starting when I was a little bit nervous. And then two, I don't think I had the crew and the right people to do it. And that's why it's like a huge blessing to have Robert and Cherry Films with us. I mean, I wouldn't have been doing it if it weren't for him, so it's huge.
Robert's killing it. You know, like I said, I've watched a number of these, and the production value is just fantastic. So it's really cool. Yeah, it's cool to see where just an idea that you and I were kicking around, and now it's this. So it's pretty
starting
cool.
off with a heavy hitter. I mean, if you just start. If I would have been doing this 5 years ago, who knows? When you told me to do it, who knows how far we'd be right now?
How long ago was that?
I think it was 5 years ago.
Was it 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, it was 2019, 2024, yeah.
Yeah.
2019, a little pre-COVID.
Yeah.
A house I bought from you.
Right?
Yeah, that little house.
Yep, that little house.
Yeah, in East Boise. Yep.
That's cool.
So, Steve, ran a business, starting sold one. A father. You've been a mentor for me in business. You've been a car mentor for me. You've been a faith mentor for me. Really a life mentor for me. You know what I mean? My staff might even almost get annoyed how much I bring up, well, Marlow says we can't do that. Or this is how Marlow does it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think they get annoyed. Usually, they reach out to you and work with you. But, I mean, I got to give a little background on it. I mean, you took a small business, sold for a multi-million-dollar business. You've been through the thick of it as far as in a way that you've said it, maybe not treating employees the way you should have been, the way burning people out to putting other people's interests first, building them up. You've worked with people East Coast, over here. You've taught people how to do everything in your business all over the world or all over the country. You know what I mean? When we met, I was training Dan. Actually, I wasn't even training. We did an eval. I thought it was cool because I sold you on 8 sessions, and like a month later, you told me that you should teach me how to make some real money, and we'd leave. You didn't know that I owned the company. What'd you see in off the field, and why'd you stay with us? And you know what I mean? Like you've been my right hand man literally since I started because of that. You know what I mean? What was it?
Well, I think a couple things. I think one of my favorite verses is, "To whom much is given, much is expected." It's in the book of Luke, and Diane and I have been blessed with a successful business, and it's really awesome. So to give back, we give back in many ways, but one of the things that really interests me is leaning into guys who are trying to get a business off the ground. I'm really interested in that. Got a little bit of experience in that. And when I saw you and not knowing the dynamics and what you had going on, what I saw was a guy that was willing to work. You flat worked. You slept in your car with your dog. There's times where I'd walk into the gym for a session. You were still asleep on the massage table with your dog down there. You slept in the back of your car. So one thing that was really important to me was I knew you were going to work. And so I was intrigued with that. And that's one thing that I think your parents gave you was you work your tail off. You're not afraid of that. And kind of unique, not always the case today so much. So I saw that. The other thing is you were just open, man. You were open to conversations. You were open to what I had to say. You listened to a lot of what I had to say. The cool thing is you weren't afraid to say, yeah, it's not going to work. And you went and tried it your own way, no matter what it was that we were talking about. And sometimes you'd come back and say, yeah, that didn't work. Can we go over that again? That happened, right?
Just like the podcast.
A number of times, like the podcast. But lots of times, too, you took an idea that you and I would kick around and you'd morph it into something that worked for you, make it a hybrid. Or maybe you would try an idea that we had and it just didn't work and you quit using it. So here's a question I have for you. Of all the topics that you and I have talked about, I mean, how many are there?
I mean,
Hundreds?
once a week. Yeah, once a week.
Of all the topics, if we could put a percentage on them, what I'd like to know is, of everything we talked about, how many, as a percentage, how many did you use exactly like you and I talked about? How many morphed into something that was a hybrid? And how many just didn't work and you didn't use at all as a percentage? I've got my idea. I've got my numbers down.
You want me to go first?
You go first.
The only one that I think I followed to a T, and I think it completely changed the company, and I talked about it when we started it, was when the partner situation happened, accountant, everybody leaving, all that craziness. You told me to calm down and that put my coach's interests in front of mine and put the kids first.
Yeah.
And do that for the rest of the time with the company.
Yeah.
And literally that, I guess I don't know if I can say that 100% of the time. I feel like I've always strived to do that. I don't think that I always do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always a work in progress for me, but I think that changed the company 100%. And then I think what that changed the most is I try to find people that only do that. Right. I mean, if you look at Augie, I mean, everybody knows he's the best. He's the best thing, one of the best things that ever happened off the field. I mean, he's literally he's the rock of this place. All the coaches, all the kids, and I think he epitomizes that, you know what I mean? And I feel like I brought him here because of that, because he's always been that guy. He's dealt with hardships when he was younger, stuff that, you know, I've never even had to deal with, and I think he sees things in a bigger picture. He's also competitive. He's also hungry, you know what I mean? And to have that balance, I think you taught me that, how to put other people's interests in front of my own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, I guess something that I followed 100% is the P&L. Literally, I had no idea. I sent you that, which is crazy. So we created a P&L, a profit and loss. I thought I could leave 12 months into owning the place, right? Remember Axiom, or it was Gold's Gym? I don't know if it's Gold's Gym or Axiom yet.
Yeah.
But we were about 18 months in, and we were full. Nobody was paying, but there was kids there every day. and I was like, Steve, we're gonna go get our own place. And you're like, cool. Let me see what numbers you got. And I'm like, what do you mean? This is how much revenue we're bringing in.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what about XX and X and X? And I had no idea. And you taught me that. We brought it. Turns out we were losing money. You know what I mean? And we were doing carbon copies. I'm writing credit card numbers down on a random piece of paper.
Yep.
I'm filing them at midnight at night by myself on the credit card processing machine. But you taught me how to run a P&L, which I think helped us get into this building, which helped us get into East Boise, helping us right now make an offer on our third place close to the Hawaii High School, the new freeway, you know what I mean? And that's the other one I think that I followed more than anything. And I think it was because it was, one, I loved it. It was something I've never even seen before, which blows my mind going through college. But two, I've realized how far behind I was in that, and I loved it. And that's one of the ones that how basic and simple it is, you know what I mean? But if you know where you're at every single minute of every single day of the month, you sleep better at night.
Well, I think the thing we talked about that you did a really good job with there too was getting an independent third party to bless the numbers,
which I didn't want to do because I was spending money.
Right.
Which she ended up finding some of the stuff with the partner and all that, everything, and too. So it ended up being a huge thing. Yeah. But no, my accountant is unbelievable. Yeah. And my bookkeeper, both of them, I don't know why they treat me good and how much. I mean, when at the end of every year, they're so awesome to me. But
there was a point in time early on where I would get your statement about the same time you would get it. You would send it to me so we could go over it together.
Yep.
And it was so funny. The beginning stages of that was so rudimentary because you were still learning how to make that work.
Yep.
And then towards the end of it, you got to the point where you're making money. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to send Marlow the statement anymore, which is the right thing to do. But what was really cool for me is when you started sending me your statement, your profit and loss, and you would answer the questions that I was going to have. That's when I knew we were making progress. Like, okay, he knows what questions I'm going to have. You'd circle them and answer them before you send it to me. And that's when I kind of knew that we had a chance.
I knew you were questioning me on them every time. Even I thought we had a good month, and you'd see an expense, and you'd tear me up on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is literally one of the. I mean, I'm so lucky to have that, because I would have never seen that. You know what I mean? Or I would have had to gone back to school or learn hard way and lose a lot of money or something like that. You know what I mean? So lucky for that. I think,
and what's cool is, some of the questions you still have, not as much as you used to, but hey, what do you think about this? Or how should we approach this? That you'll run past me, it's always numbers based. You've done your numbers behind it. And so the numbers usually tell you the truth, right?
Well, because you used to tell me, well, what does it say? Have you put pen to paper?
Right.
Have I got a calculator? Have you done it yet? Which is why everything on our whiteboard over here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I used to come to you, and then you'd say, well, how do we know?
Yeah, which I got from my dad. That's where I got that from. Matter of fact, number 2 yellow pencil, right? That's what the whole thing was about, is we'd have a really good month in our business. And I'd walk in thinking, maybe best month we've had in a long time. And I was thinking I was going to walk into my dad's office, at the first of the month, because the statement's there, right? And I was going to get a attaboy. And instead I got your reconditioning expenses are high. And I'm like, dude, we just made more money than we've ever made. But that's the key to that, right?
I think to an extent, but I also something I just struggle with, even with some of my employees, and sometimes your son's trying to work with us, and today he literally says, "Hey, I just made my first sale. I have one soccer player coming in, and maybe another friend," which in my head means they didn't sell. He has them coming in, but nobody's paid, nobody's signed up yet. So I didn't respond with "good job."
Yeah.
I didn't respond with "great job." I literally wrote back and said, "Well, have they even come in yet?" He's like, "Oh, no, they're going to come in Thursday." So did they pay yet? And I go, "Well, that's not a sale."
Right.
And then I just wrote back right afterwards. I said, "Hey, you're the man." I was like, that was bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that balance is tricky. I struggle with that sometimes, you know what I mean, to where it's like hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Going back to your business thing, I think the other one is the 10-minute one-on-ones. Now and I think we can get into that. I think we'll probably have another podcast eventually, you and I, to where we might just talk strictly just about business, not just about life. But the 10-minute one-on-ones is an absolute game changer, because now I realize the importance even more now that we've grown a little bit. It used to just be me and one coach. So we didn't need a 10-minute one-on-one because we just hung out all day together. So everything we talked about was together. But the meeting with my coaches every single week is huge. Now, I don't stick to it, which sucks. So if you talk about that percentage, you know what I mean? That percentage is not as high as it should be. You know what I mean? I have a team meeting every week. We have, I try to do my one-on-ones with my guys, but the key word of that is try. I don't do it. You know what I mean? And the issue is I go to a school, they go to a school, we go here, we're here. You know what I mean? That's the one tricky part about our business. But you can ask Canyon, you can ask Augie, our GMs, when we meet with them, it's literally within 3 days how much the business grows just because we just talk. You know what I mean?
Right.
When I talk with Robert, it's just an absolute game changer. And it's such a simple thing to do, to where it's if I have to think about it, I mean, that's the one thing that I think that you've helped us with so much. And it's probably the one thing that I haven't done enough that I think we'd probably be a lot farther if I stuck to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's hard, and the thing about it is, I think the human conditioning is, I think we're wired to want accountability. I think deep down we want it.
Yep.
At the surface, you kind of push back against it. And the idea of a daily 10-minute one-on-one is you're being held accountable every day for what you were supposed to have done yesterday. And then you get to talk about, what am I going to do today that I'm going to be held accountable to tomorrow? That accountability is huge. The problem is when you get to Augie's level, if he's not having that accountability with you, which I think he has, that's great. And I want to talk about Augie for a second too when we're done with this. But the real question for you or anybody else that's the head of your company is who are you accountable to?
How do you get somebody to hold you accountable? So I've talked with my GMs. I've talked with people. I literally just said, one guy who lets me know if I don't do something is him. The other guys don't. You know what I mean? And like trying to get them to do that. I think, you know, Augie and Canyon, I want to get the things done that I tell them because I respect them and I know they're going to do everything they're telling me they're going to do. You know what I mean? But if it doesn't happen, it's not like if I had a conversation with you. It's not like if I had a conversation when I was younger. So when you were a boss and you were running the show and Dad was gone,
right?
Who was holding you accountable?
You know, I got really lucky. I belong to a group of business owners that we would share this type of information with on a very confidential level. It was a really, really cool group, and we would meet together. And if we asked for accountability, we would get that. But it's really hard. It's kind of like that NFL football team. You know, you take the best quarterback, who was the best quarterback, you know, Brady, for an example. Well, throughout Brady's career, he always had a quarterback's coach, always. And the quarterback coach had an offensive coordinator, and the offensive coordinator had a head coach, and the head coach had a general manager, all this accountability. The problem is you get to an owner. And if you look at ownership in pro sports today, there's some problems. There's some loose cannons, you know, because they don't have any accountability, and the organizations don't run very well. And so I think it's really critical for you or for anybody else that's the head of an organization is to find out, put somebody in place that's going to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
That you give a set of written goals to. You write them down with deadlines to say, hey, hold me accountable to this. And what happens is if you quit doing that, that person that you asked to hold you accountable will quit being involved. He doesn't want to be involved anymore. You know, what's one of the things that we talk about? I mean, I'm really lucky. I get to work with, I figured we'd probably talk about this today. I was thinking about it. I think there's about 13 guys right now.
Cool.
Is what I work with. Some of them are your guys. And I don't know if you remember what this is, but there's a couple things I require because I work for free, right? I work for coffee. But basically I work for free is there's a couple things that are important to me. I don't know if you remember what those are. One is
move the needle.
We got to be moving the football down the field. If we're not advancing whatever your issue is, business issue, personal finance issue, faith issue, whatever your issue is, you've asked me to lean in on, if we're not advancing the football, I'm out. I'm just out. The other thing is you got to return the favor. This mentorship thing, which I'd like to talk about a little bit when we get down the road, is you got to return the favor when it comes to mentorship. But I think that's what happens with a lot of owners is they don't have that accountability. And that's in all aspects of business, sports, business, whatever the case might be. And it's pretty obvious to see that.
Yeah.
When it happens. But just like I won't continue to work with someone who's not moving the football. If you ask somebody to hold you accountable and you don't do it anymore, they're not gonna be there.
Yeah. I mean, thinking about it, I mean, now that I have this many employees, and I know that, I mean, they're all savages, they're all dogs, they're all wanting to go as far as they possibly can. I know I got to keep going and keep growing this, or I'm going to lose these guys, which, you know, deservingly so. So I think that is something that really holds me accountable. Like if I have to think about it, that's what keeps me up at night. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, oh man, I know Wyatt wants to be with the college. He's got to do this. I got to get him here. Hey, Cherry needs me to have every single listener set. That's all I have to do. He does everything else. I got to get the people set up and do this. Augie, I got to get teed up for everything. You know what I mean? So the employees is huge. I think I can't make a big decision really without asking you. And I won't bring it to you unless I've done my homework on it, because you're either going to just tell me, well, we don't know anything about it. Like that's just, you're going to tell me if I haven't done the numbers yet. Right. I mean, we don't know. Right. Is this emotion or not? So I know I have to do my homework before I even bring it to you. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then I think my dad too. Like anything that I ever tell him, he's gonna ask me about. Right. You didn't get that done. Right. You know what I mean? Hey, like or you didn't do this, or the building is like this. Hey, that's still not done. Yeah. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
So how many times, if you've got an idea or a question that you are going to bring to me, how many times do you solve it on your own by doing the numbers before it gets to me?
Almost all of them. I want to call you every day.
Right.
Yeah, almost all of them.
Yeah.
As soon as I put it out, it's cat chasing the ball of yarn, right?
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about it today too. Like, oh, that sounds cool. Oh, we could go start a club, a sevens or something, and it's just and then nope,
Yeah.
that's next one up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a good drill. I'm glad that stuck.
But I think it took me. I mean, that took reps. I used to bring you everything.
Yeah.
Hey, we could go do this. Hey, this person wants to say, this club wants to say, hey, this, we could go be, you know what I mean? It took reps, you know what I mean? What are we trying to do? And
Yeah.
I think narrowing it down on what our focus is and everything like that, I think has helped out a ton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and look at the net result. You're really good. You and your guys are really good at what you do.
Studs.
Yeah, you're really good at what you do.
Studs.
And so the question always is, do you have everybody that you can have doing what you do? And until you get there, why do you start something else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's turned into, I mean, I feel like everybody says, hey, it's not luck, it's hard work. But I mean, so many things have worked and been so lucky in place. And my biggest passion was working with athletes. You know what I mean? And now my coaches and my staff is like, I enjoy that more than anything else, but they all were my athletes, or they were athletes. It's like the same thing, and now they're doing the same thing. You know what I mean? It's literally to be able to do this and wear shorts to work and hang out with kids all day.
In a building that you own.
Yeah.
What about that?
Yeah.
What about that?
Crazy.
Yep.
At the same time, I like to use your quote, I sleep like a baby. As a business owner, wake up every 15 minutes screaming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's gotten better. My wife and my kids, I almost think that it's crazy. Your kids, you don't sleep because of your kids, because they're up and you're helping and you're doing that, but it's a different type of waking up. But now that I have them, it's like, this matters, but it's not the same. That's a real worry. You know what I mean? My family and my kids and my wife, to where it's like now, less times now do I wake up at 3 a.m. stressing about work. I mean, it still happens, but now it's like, if I wake up at anything, it's about worrying about what my kids are and how my wife, what she needs. You know what I mean? But I've been lucky. It's been a lot better.
I'm working with the guy right now that's talking about wanting to start his own business, and we're going through the pitfalls of that. And one of the we're very beginning stages. Matter of fact, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But one of his reasons for wanting to do that is that he wanted to control his own time. I said, dude, if you think that that you're going to control your time by owning your own business, so many guys that I've talked to over the years, me included, that when you're in the middle of running your own business, you go to a movie with your wife and you're sitting there for 2 hours and you walk out and your wife says, hey, did you like that when that happened in that movie? Man, I didn't see any of it.
Yeah, you had no idea.
But I had 3 problems fixed because I had 2 hours in the dark, right? I could really roll, right? And it's funny that, the how people think that if I can just get my own business and I can control my own time.
Yeah, just run it.
It doesn't work that way.
I don't know. I think it was because of social media and different things like that. I mean, I don't know how it was like when your day, if everybody thought, hey, you own your business, you don't think about it. Like social media now, I think really portrays that.
Yeah.
I think it's switching. So a lot of people will say, hey, man, you got to work you still do have to work your ass off. But like when I started, I just don't think I was very good at being told what to do. Not really more of like, hey, I can't take advice. But I think it was more like, I would see the way things were running. I didn't think things were run the right way, and I thought I was going to try to run them my own way. And I mean, it didn't work at the beginning with the first managers that I had at a gym. You know what I mean? Right. I was like, well, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to a different school anyways. But that's kind of I think why I started, and I don't know if that's good or bad. You know what I mean? But it wasn't about my own hours. But my funniest thing is you can write it off. Hey, just get a new truck. You can write it off.
Right.
And hey, man, yeah, I got invited to a golfing trip. One of my guys is getting married. He's up on the wall. He's getting married next week, or this year, and he's like, "Hey man, we're leaving next Wednesday." I'm like, "You think in 5 days' notice, I'm just gonna head out on a Wednesday?" He's like, "You own it, man. Somebody cover for you."
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's never like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think of OTF? I know that when in my business. I was so involved in it, and it was so a part of who I was that I looked at my business as if it was a child. It literally was a living, breathing I protected it like that. I thought of it like that. How do you see OTF now with two babies in your house? And
Yeah, I don't know if I ever saw it like that. You know, I mean, I guess I do treat it like that, but mine's more have been like, even when I met my wife and then my kids, it's like, how can I hate the word balance. You know what I mean? I don't, especially with where I'm at, and this is one thing that you and I argued a little bit. I think when you first work with me, setting goals, family, personal, and career, it needs to be balanced. You did say, hey, it's going to be more career focused when I was younger, but I like Tony Robbins has been a huge mentor for me too. I've obviously never met him, but I've took every course that he's had, listened to everything, read all his books. But he talks about life work integration and creating a system and a life and something that where everybody can be together. My wife works here. When she is here, when she can actually be here, this place runs way better. Like she's so good at the things that I'm not. So good at the things I'm not. And she knows when I'm being a shit or doing something, you know what I mean? And she handles that and makes the place look pretty, you know what I mean? And then my kids will just hang out here, run, you know what I mean? Run around, and I can't wait till we can coach them and train them. And my daughter Cove, she's 2, you know what I mean? And she's just like, oh, can I see Augie? Oh, can I see Emmy? Oh, can I see Canyon? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, so I don't know if I can treat it like that, but I guess it is part of the family, you know what I mean? But it's like something that I never want to give up. Like one of my dreams is that Cove runs it one day, you know what I mean? I think that cool. she would kill it, you know, or cool. runs a part of it or something like that, you know? But I think Tony, I was lucky there. Tony Robbins was kind of like create the business to where it's like your family can be involved.
Right.
You know? And you told me never work with my wife. And I think that, you know, I think with people in the past that would have obviously never worked, but I think I got super lucky, and my wife makes this place better and makes it better when she's here.
Remember I told you do you remember the first place I met Ari? Do you know where that was at? Do you remember where that was?
San Diego?
No. It was Red Robin, me and Dan. You brought her to dinner.
Like after a game?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you called me
BK.
You called me the next day. Hey, what do you think? I said, dude, don't mess that up. Don't screw that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Which was crazy. So when Ari met me, I was homeless.
Yeah.
So I was living in Winston Venable's house. He wouldn't even let me pay rent. So I paid him on the side, but he didn't want me to pay rent. He's like, I was living in his house while he was in the CFL.
Yep.
I couldn't sign a lease because I was trying to buy this building, and I could have no debt to income. So I was, and I brought her here. That made it feel like it was my house. You know what I mean? I told her day one it wasn't, but she just thought I had all. And I was bouncing around from home to home because I was trying to get into here. I don't know why she stayed. I think it was because of Chuck, the dog.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Chuck. So we talk about goals. We talk about them in 3 categories, right? We talk about business, personal, and family. If you can, share a business goal. What's a business goal you have for OTF?
So 2024, 2 things, and they work together. And we haven't come up with the exact name. I created the LLC for it, but OTF Medical, and can I kind of help us work our way into our 3rd facility. So we want to have a 3rd facility this year. Where we want to go, there's nothing existing, so we're going to have to build it, so it won't be up this year, but at least have the property bought by the end of the year. And that's going to be where the new freeway is at in Boise, in Northwest Meridian.
Right.
Emmett will be a 6A high school. Middleton will be a 6A high school. It's right next to Hawaii High School, which Cliff Rice and Dane Roy and their whole staff is unbelievable to us, and so Hawaii would be awesome, and we'd be over there by that, and then that freeway's huge, so Coal Valley will be there. Star's going to have a high school, you know, so that area. But I'm going to be more involved in the therapy side of things. So the more we've done it, we've worked with surgeons, we work with ACLs a ton, and the crappy thing is we get them from and all the therapists we work with are good people and great, but it's just so over here, and then they want them to come to us. So I'm working on trying to write my own protocols, been picking brains from, to me, the best people in the country, in the world, best people in the state, surgeons here too. Jake, you know, had a huge influence on that.
Right.
Travis, that we have now, is you know, a trainer for the Colts forever, you know what I mean? And we're going with stuff that worked for him, stuff that didn't work, stuff he had to follow that he didn't like, you know what I mean? So we want to change the game with that. So that to me is what I can repeat and maybe maybe if we do build a bunch of locations, I don't know if that's the long term, but the long term is to try to give the best possible service we can give to athletes. And to where if I have a guy with it that has a knees bugging him and I could bring him right over to a guy and be able to work on it, I think that would help a ton.
That's really cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, really cool.
And, in the building we're at now, we have Steve Marlow in rebound therapy, and he's unbelievable. The hips and back with any of our NFL guys, something's wrong. It's like he squeezes them in, figures it out. And Kai Turner, one of my old guys, is a PT there too. You know what I mean? So it's something I'm trying to figure out to where I can get on the medical side of things. We can kind of help control and write some of the protocols. Therapists are going to think I'm an idiot first because I don't have a doctorate behind my name, and I don't blame them. But we've seen things that work and things that they do that are phenomenal and things that I think that we do that are phenomenal, and we can figure out how to integrate it together, and I can control that process. That's what I'm going to create.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've already created the LLC. It's going to be something different. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
So that's it. And then get our third place.
Yeah.
Might be our last place. It might be the start of maybe a bunch. Canyon wants to own 25 of these. You know what I mean? Right. So I want to do that too. Ben Ruby is a new hire that we got. He wants to do the same thing, maybe in Salt Lake. So we'll see.
Do you remember when we were first talking about, and I can't remember exactly, was it Dylan? Who else was it? Dylan
and Bryce.
And Bryce.
AJ.
And when you realized that you were going to lose a coach, it was time for them to move on, and all the heartburn that caused you when that happened. And now you see like what's happened with Jake. How do you feel now, like with Jake's opportunity? I mean, how's that different from you?
Not any better. Sucks.
Still terrible.
Sucks. All those guys are dogs. You know what I mean? I tried to hire guys that are unbelievable. You know what I mean? I think that what they've taught me is that I've had to level up the business. You know what I mean? Maybe I could have kept some of those guys if they were working here now. You know what I mean? In that spot, if I had this medical side of things done and was ready for that, maybe a guy like Jake would stay. You know what I mean? And every one of my coaches has the same potential as every one of those guys, and they're dogs and unreal, and my goal is to try to do everything I can to make them better than off the field. So if they have a chance to leave, I'm going to help them get to the Dodgers or wherever they want to go, but then also try to make off the field as good as I possibly can to where they never want to leave. You know what I mean? So it's a love-hate thing. You know what I mean?
A guy like Jake's, obviously incredible talent, and he would have found his way, however he's going to have found his way. But how do you feel that really his time that he put in here set him up for a job like that? That's got to make you feel good, doesn't it?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it should.
And I don't think people understand.
Right.
People know, hey, it's the LA Dodgers. It's here. But on the side that he went in on, the director of the Major League program for the Dodgers is like the only other program that might be the same level as them as the Yankees, maybe the Sox, and the MLB. He's literally he has a chance to, if he sticks to it, he could be a director for the best organization in the world.
Right.
As far as baseball goes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So Jake had opportunities. He had other opportunities, and he turned them down in years past.
What'd the guy from the Dodgers say to you when you told him that you're losing one of your best guys? What did he say?
He said, "What do you need, man? I'll bring you tickets. You want to bring your guys down. You want to do whatever." He knew I was losing a good one.
Right.
And I think, I think they realized that too. You know what I mean? They asked me a few times. You know what I mean? I think it took a short amount of time to realize that, not just the knowledge, but the amount that he was going to work, and he put other people first. He got a chance to go to a Division I program before I had Cove.
Yeah. And
I don't think I've ever even told you this, but he said he can't leave right now.
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah, because Ari and I are going to have a kid.
Right.
Which is crazy. And I told him, okay, you need to leave, and he wouldn't leave. He also, Ben Ford, one of his favorite athletes of all time, was coming off an injury, and he was in the process of getting him there. And I was like, man, that's never going to end. You're always going to have an athlete there. And talking about putting people's interests in front of your own.
One of the things that we talked a lot about, and I don't know if we ever really landed on something we agreed with. I don't know, maybe you'll correct me. I don't know, 100%. I don't know. I think we're probably 85, 90%. But one of the things that you and I talked probably outside of P&Ls and the idea of, how cool would it be if you ran a company where you're always putting somebody else first. One of the things that we talked a lot about was culture. And that's such a vague thing. It's such a, you could walk into any business.
It's vague and cliche. Everybody wants you to say the word.
And there's some sort of a phony piece that you bought online that talks about the culture and eagles flying and soaring and all that type of happy crap, right? But you really kind of dialed it in a little bit. That's why you get these guys, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
I think it was because I think having a partner was the best and was the hardest and best thing that ever happened to me.
Because you were this cocky JV baseball coach, all the right sayings and all the right stuff, and you still got a lot of that. I see it right now. You still got a lot of that in you, right? And that's good, man. It served you well. But you humbled up a lot.
I was working. I mean, I hate using the word hours, and I think you taught me that too. But I hate talking about how many hours you work in a week. But I mean, I would work 100-hour weeks for 5 years. Maybe it was 4 years, and then all of a sudden I had nothing, maybe less than nothing, and it was what it turned down to it. I lost money, which we figured out how to come back from. I was young, but it hurt my ego more than anything else, which is nothing. You know what I mean? When it hurt, looking at it, I was more worried about what other people were thinking about me than worrying about how I still have all these kids, I still have all these people to take care of, I still have my parents, I still have my coaches, you know what I mean? I had so many people that were still in my corner, and in the grand scheme is maybe 3 people were judging me, you know what I mean? Maybe a handful of people, and then it would have forgot about it a month later, and I was so worried about what they were thinking.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that took it to where it's like, okay, I just hit rock bottom without going bankrupt, which I should have gone bankrupt, but without going bankrupt, you know, I mean, lucky that didn't happen. I went as low as I could without going bankrupt and losing the company. I mean, the name was about to change, right?
Yep.
And looking at it, it was like, okay, so what actually happened? Lost some money, okay? And then after that, I didn't have kids. I didn't have a wife. I didn't lose a house. Nobody got sick. Nobody got anything else, you know what I mean? The thing that hurt the most was my perception in the community, what people thought of me. And really, it was like a few people that were always competitors, people just going to try to bring you down anyways, you know what I mean? But nobody really cares. And that was it. And I mean, when I figured that out, I was like, okay, once the ego gets out of the way, now I get to hang out with the kids. It doesn't matter anymore.
It's so funny to me because being really humble and putting other people's interests first doesn't mean that you think less of yourself. It just means you think of yourself less.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think the thing that I've now seen too, I think, and my kids have taught me this, because I was there. I was a loud guy, not because I was the best guy. It was because I was insecurities. You know what I mean? I was trying to overcome different things that I didn't have. You know what I mean? And so I was trying to be the toughest or the loudest or whatever. And now seeing my guys with that, I think that it's more. I was more worried about what other people thought about myself, not what I thought about myself. I actually felt like then, you know, being humble is like once you've figured out you're confident, it's like, man, nobody can do it like me, so I don't even have to worry about them.
Right.
Like, hey, man, you're good. Like it's like, hey, yeah, throw me on the bus. Who cares? But let's just keep going. You know what I mean? And as soon as when you get a young kid, a high school kid, a college kid, to start thinking like that, it's crazy on the things that they can achieve. And I think when I figured that out, when I stopped worrying about what other people thought about me and things like that, I think that's been huge.
Well, you think about all the cats that have moved on from here for good reasons. You know, Jake being the last guy, at least I know of. Jake being the last guy. But look at the talent that you recruit here. I mean, the guy in the room. I mean, I work out at the East Boise location. I see Canyon 4 or 5 times a week. Alex, you know, new there. You lose a guy, and the next guy in has got the same abilities, just maybe not quite there yet. How does that happen?
Slow to hire and quick to fire. Opposite of what I used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to be ready, fire, aim, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was, and Cherry, you can write that one down, but it was literally the first thing that happened. You walk in, I'll take you.
Well, I used to tease you because if you had a pulse and a driver's license, you would hire him.
We would hire him.
Yep.
Yeah. And you learning how to, and I think Eric Cressy actually taught me this too, and again, never spoke to him, but just a mentor from online, but they would rather be a little bit overworked, a little strung out, and have their guys like, hey, we're going to do a little bit more because we're not going to try to burn this culture until we get the right person. I think our staff, we've seen it if we ever bring in somebody that just doesn't fit. It's nothing to do with if you're the smartest bird in the world, but if you don't fit like our vibe, you know what I mean? That's worse than anything else. You know what I mean? So I think trying to really make sure that you fit our vibe, you know, like that's a Colby Blaine thing too. Like, and he's the coach at the College of Idaho. But him seeing the way how he recruits kids, you know what I mean? Watching those things, to me, it's huge. The way that Judd used to do the same thing with his staff and with the guys that he would bring in. Chris Kulig, I think, does the same stuff, you know what I mean? And watching them, I think that's helped me a ton too, you know what I mean? Instead of this guy played at a high level or this girl played at a high level or they have their CSCS or they have a master's degree or they worked at this place, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I've hired guys, some of my best guys had no background. And Augie didn't know if he wanted to be a strength coach. I was just sitting down with him, reaching back out to him. He was one of my favorite kids I ever coached because of the human he was. And he's like, I don't really know what I want to do. And it was like, well, why don't you come work for me? That's kind of how it started. You know what I mean? And I think
so you say vibe and culture are the same thing.
Yeah. Colby Blaine uses the word vibe, and he has for like the last 4 or 5 years, and it's learning that from him.
Here's what's cool. I walk into business all the time. I still consult for businesses. I'll walk in to buy something just as a consumer, and I'm a student. I like to see what's going on. I like to see the culture when I walk into the door. And man, so many businesses you walk into, organizations you walk into, not only can you not figure out what the culture is, I don't think there is one. It's really tough. I was really lucky, and one of the things that really influenced my business career is it's a long story. We can talk about it some other time, but really connected with Dan Hawkins at Boise State. And then when Dan left for Colorado, Chris Peterson came in, and as a booster, I was probably a little closer than maybe a guy should be. I don't think you could get there today, probably. But I did a lot of work. I handled the car program. I did a lot of stuff for him too. And so I quickly got kind of behind the scenes a little bit. And one of the things, I think Chris Peterson coined the term OKG, our kind of guy. You walked into that football building and you knew exactly what the culture was. You didn't have to guess it. If anybody said what an OKG is, everybody knew. And it's kind of cool because I don't even think a guy like me could have got in without being an OKG. The ball boy, the assistant trainer, nobody had anything to do with that football program, wasn't there if you weren't an OKG. And that's where I took my culture cues from in my business, was that. And that's what's cool about here is I think the reason you attract this type of talent is because everybody knows what the culture is. You don't have to guess.
Yeah.
It's not on the wall anywhere. Doesn't have to be. Everybody lives it. And the cool thing is if you really want to determine what the culture should be in the future, you get together with a bunch of cool dudes and you do it together.
What do you mean?
Just what you're doing right now. I mean, the culture is what it is, but it's always morphing and changing. But the cool thing is you took this group of guys and you're creating, because everybody's on board, you're creating the culture together.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Doesn't happen very often. Easy to talk about. Doesn't happen very often. Pretty cool.
So we'll backtrack a little bit. Give us a quick, your story. You were a barely above average athlete from Tri-Cities.
Barely above average.
Didn't go to college. JC for a little bit, right? Community college or something?
Community college, yeah.
Yep, for half of a day.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yep. And then what?
I got lucky. I got lucky with a couple things. My dad was partners in a wholesale car auction. We don't have to get into the nuts and bolts of what that is, but a wholesale car auction, and got really lucky. I was kicking around, working at UPS, United Parcel Service, working part-time at the auction, going to community college, which was stupid. I mean, I was just wasting money. What am I doing here, right? And my dad and his partner decided to start a new auction in Seattle. And I got to leave with my dad's partner and help him go start that, which was one of the best things for me because kind of had an idea of how my dad looked at doing stuff, and then I got to go with his partner and learn a lot about how he looked at things. And that was probably the biggest blessing for me was 2 or 3 years into the Seattle operation, they sold to a big corporation, and I got transferred to San Francisco to work at a big auction there as a sales manager. And you want to talk about taking a sip out of a fire hose. I didn't learn a lot about the car business. I think we probably knew more about it than they did, but I learned a lot about the people business. And one of the things that I talk about, one of the big problems in businesses, car businesses, doesn't matter what business is that second generation guy. So like if Crew is ready to take over, if Cove is ready to take over, one of the things that I would tell you, that I tell all my people, is let's send her away for a couple of years. She kind of knows what she knows from you. And she's learned how to maybe run this place, maybe.
Right.
But there's a whole lot about what she doesn't know. So let's ship her off to, maybe you have an associate in Florida that runs a similar type of a business. Or it doesn't even have to be a similar business. Just maybe someone we trust that's going to look out for her a little bit. Let's ship her off for 2 years. Now, you want your wife to get mad at you? Wait till that happens. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
What does she do to you? But what you get back is a whole set of values and ideas that she wouldn't have gotten here. And that's the great thing that happened to me is when it was time for me to move to Idaho, take this business over, I had a lot of my dad's input. I had a lot of my dad's partner's input. I learned a bunch from the transfer I did in San Francisco. I came back, I kind of had my own way.
Cool.
Bits and pieces of everything. And that's one of the things that I really recommend, and I do recommend when I'm working with other businesses, is like, hey, you got a second generation, you got a kid coming in the business, that can be a problem. And so let's ship them away for a couple of years, and then let's bring them back.
Okay.
But boy, you want to get the moms upset. That'll get them fired up.
Easy way to do it.
Yeah, that's how you get it.
I can imagine.
So that's what happened to me. And came to Idaho. Our first car sale here was, I think we sold 27 cars, and everybody was pretty excited about that. And when we sold the business, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever it was, we were selling 40,000 cars a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, I don't know, that I think that I bought into the most from you is because is a couple things. So I hate how people are like, treat people good, do stuff like you've taught me. You know what I mean? Hey, if things are gonna work out, it's okay. Or hey, don't drink, don't party, don't go crazy, don't go do. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, it must be easy for you. You had the money, you had this, and you do this. You know what I mean? Or hey, you got to be balanced. Hey, you got to figure out your own thing. You got to figure out your faith. And it's like, oh man, like there's time for that, But then the more I heard your story, it's to where, to me, you've been on the far end of it, to where going down a path that maybe even if you were making money, but it was a path that was not good for you upstairs, physically, mentally, everything, relationship-wise. But then when you actually switched and you started taking care of people, when you found your faith, with your son, and then just when you started you talked to me about it before, where it was burn them out employees. You got guys that would sell more cars than anybody else, and then it was boom, next guy up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when you actually started taking care of your employees, didn't mean you didn't hold them to a high standard. They didn't follow it. You didn't get rid of them. But when you started taking care of them and your guys, then the business became something you could sell. Then the business became something that you could stack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think was that in the car business is sometimes you can go down a rougher path, right? You know what I mean? And that's what you kind of grew up into when you were traveling. I mean, from my understanding, when you were in Washington, when you were in San Francisco, you know what I mean? What was the turning point for you? You know what I mean? And how has that impacted you, and how has that changed? You know what I mean? What was hard about that?
Yeah,
I know it's a big deal. You know what I mean?
Used car business is a rough and tumble business. It is. Not so much today like it used to be, but a rough and tumble business. And we got to the point where we were starting to make some money. Diana and I had been married. We were making money, and I was working crazy hours, and I thought I thought that my responsibility as a provider, as a husband, was she's driving a Cadillac, she's got a black card, we live in a big house. I'm never there. I'm either entertaining customers, which wasn't always the best thing, or on the road trying to find the next deal, where the case might be. And I'm like, I'm doing my job. But neither one of us were happy. Diana wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. We were making some money and having some success, but it really wasn't it for us. And it wasn't until, it's kind of crazy, is Diana's dad was an Episcopalian minister.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so she was raised up in a faith family. I was raised up in a faith family. And we did what a lot of teenage kids do or young adults do. As soon as you can get away from the faith, I don't have to go to church anymore, I don't have to do any of this anymore, you run from it, right? And we did that. And it wasn't until we came back to our faith and brought God into our lives, and brought God into our business. It's one of the big reasons why we're such a big fan of Bishop Kelly. Is unlike maybe some other schools at Bishop Kelly, they invite God into Bishop Kelly, into that building every day.
And you're not even Catholic, though.
We're not Catholic at all.
Yep.
And that's why we're a big fan of Bishop Kelly. And we did the same thing in our business. And I think that's when I always paid my guys good. I paid them good. But we rode them like rented ponies, and didn't care about their issues, didn't want to hear about it. Hey, look, just sell cars.
Yeah.
We're not here to make friends. We're here to make money. And it wasn't until I reconnected with my faith until I realized there's a different way of going about it. And you and I have had this conversation, and it was you always brought up a really good argument. And I don't know if I ever resolved that with a good question, but your question is like, would you have made as much money doing it differently? I don't know. I know I'd have felt a lot better about it. Because there's lots of things, if I could go back and do different, I would. But we sold a lot of cars and we made a lot of money. And would it have been better if I made half of that and did it right? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I think that, I see how you do it, and you're still learning, you're still growing. You're doing it the right way. You're starting to see a little bit of success. You're doing it the right way. Maybe that would work for me too. And we still did. I think we ran our business for another 7 years until we sold it. And I think a big reason why the last 7 years, 6 years was the growth that we had was because of that.
Yeah.
We started attracting really good employees. We started attracting really good customers. Is more important to me is how we did it than how much money we made at it. And it's funny is when you start putting, you start putting other people's interests first. Philippians 2:3. Don't worry about your self-interests. Be more concerned about putting other people's interests first. When you do that, it's reciprocal, right?
Yeah.
People start treating you that way.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's hard to get there, though. And, your business is a rough and tumble business. You got young athletes. You got young male athletes. It's sometimes I think it would probably be hard to be that type of a role model. They don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Always.
No, it's tough. I mean, I had two maybe better athletes in the state in here the other day talking about it doesn't matter if I'm doing drugs because I'm still better than everybody else.
And Robert this might get cut on the floor in the editing deal, but one of the biggest problems you and I ever had is when I walked into the old location, there was a group of high school football players, and what they were talking about right there in the middle of the lobby with young girls walking in and out, moms walking in and out, they were talking about their exploits
with women. Yeah.
And I came and got you and said, what are we doing? But sometimes that's the culture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, and again, I think it took me, I think I got raised right, too. But you still, it's easy, like you said, it's easy as soon as you leave. You know what I mean? It's easy to kind of go do your own thing. Because my parents lived a way harder life. They came from the fact that they're where they're at now. It's insane how much they've done for me and how hard they work. But they did everything they possibly could for me. But then it was like me. It was also, a little wild and crazy and didn't care about anybody else, trying to go do my own thing. You know what I mean? And I've seen both sides of it. And as soon as, when I almost lost the company and did that, and my relationship was terrible, and it was 100% my fault. It wasn't anybody else's fault. You know what I mean? I'd blame it on other things, but it was my fault. You know what I mean? As soon as that switched, you know what I mean? Things did change. Things have gotten 10 times better. Peace. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so now it's like, I'll even talk to some of my best friends who were all pretty successful, the guys that I'm close with. You know what I mean? One of them, Daniel Harrington, literally lived with for 10 years, and we went to elementary school together and lived together in college. You know what I mean? And my other guys are, attorneys. I know you don't like them, and brokers. I know you don't like them either, but they're killing it. But we talk about it, and it's like, okay, how would we influence ourselves at that young age? You know what I mean? And the thing that they always come up with is you got to experience it. And I think that it is true, but if there's a way I can make that experience a little shorter, to where maybe I can get a kid to figure it out by the time he's 18 instead of 22, or if he's going to figure it out at 25, if I can make him figure it out at 22, you know what I mean? I think we figure out we can get some real there, and I think there are some guys. I mean, a lot of people don't know. I've had kids, driving when they shouldn't be, and I have to go pick them up in the middle of the night, or getting in trouble at different things, and it's like I'm the one that literally kids shoplifting, and they don't call their coach or they don't call their parent. They call me to act like their dad. You know what I mean? And stuff that I can't do. You know what I mean? But it's like, okay, if they trust me enough for that, they know that I've been there. I haven't shoplifted, but wasn't a great person either at one point. If I can have a good influence on them and help them, shorten that gap to where you realize it and where they can start treating other people better, which in turn is going to help them better, which is going to help them if they do want to be a scholarship or be a pro guy, you know what I mean? Or just be better at life, you know what I mean? But I know how it was when I was 17. I wanted to play in the pros too. So I don't want to take that dream away from them, you know what I mean? And so
it seems like
that's the biggest thing that I feel like I'm trying to mentor is, can I shorten the gap?
Yeah. I think
it took me until I was 27, 26, you know what I mean? And it took you till later than that, and I'm still working on it. It's not like perfect, you know what I mean? The faith thing is something that I always am struggling and battling with, and talking with you about, talking with Robert about, my mom about, you know what I mean? And that's something that I'm always trying to be better at and actually, live by. It's just,
that's one of the cool things. One of the cool things about OTF and the opportunity that you have to lean into young men. It's why I'm so passionate about being a mentor. I think that men in general today, it's just different today. It's changed a lot. There's a lot of adolescent 50-year-old men running around.
Yeah, a
lot. I'm 62. I just think back 10 or 15 years, there wasn't that as many as there's a lot of adolescent. The culture today seems to be like, do you, take care of you, get yours. And I think obligation and responsibility, is something that's lacking a little bit. There's this great saying I love. I'm probably going to mess it up. Let me see if I can't get it right. I love it. But it says, hard times create strong men. You know the saying?
Yeah.
Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And I look at that and I think, you can talk about today, life can be hard today. There's lots of challenges today. I get it. The economy, COVID, all the different challenges. But you think about it, we got it pretty good right now.
Yeah.
We're not driving oxen across the prairie trying to figure out where dinner comes from. Any of the three of us are hungry, we run down to the store and we get something to eat, right? It's pretty easy.
He might have shot an oxen this month. You never know what he's doing.
Robert might be chasing
him on his farm somewhere. You never know what he's doing.
So you think about, in that saying, where are we at in that saying? Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men. Where are we at? And I kind of think we're kind of in that.
Well, I think about that quote all the time. I'm 100% the good times. Like my dad was literally his mom, when he was turned 14, said, hey, you're a teenager now, you can provide for yourself. It made him live on his own. 14 years old. I mean, I was complaining that we had to live in Nampa, and my mom would still drive me to Mountain View High School, and I was complaining to her that we had to live out there and do that. Yeah. But she was taking me to the school that I wanted to go to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was 14 years old, and I'm like, I can't imagine them doing that. My mom got shipped away on Christmas by herself from Minnesota to Boise when she was in middle school. You know what I mean? They had the hard times.
Yeah.
My thought always was, and I didn't think about it until I had kids. I thought about it a little bit, but I didn't think about it. My thought was like, they leveled up so much that I have to do more than that. Level up more than them, because of how much they provide. They did everything. I mean, to get to a private college, to do everything. I mean, anytime I needed to be on a club team, whatever it was, even though they didn't have the funds, they figured it out. You know what I mean? So now I have to be able to, level up 10 times what they did, because I'm in the good times. But now I have my kids, and now it's like I want to give them everything, but then it's the same thing, right? Like it's like with the car, like the guy that drove the old beat up beater, then the next kid had the 4Runner, and then the next kid had a Ferrari, and the next kid was bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right? After the guy with the Ferrari. It's the same thing. And so to me, it's like my kids, I want to give them everything. I want them to be safe, but I know they're 2 and 9 months, but it's like, how can I create all of these things? I want them to deal with struggle. I want them to figure out with things on their own. You know what I mean? Right. I think my wife and I are super paralleled on that too. She does so much for them, but she still also helps them make their own choices, or helps them learn how to make their own choices and stuff too. But that's a constant thing that I worry about all the time. I want to do everything I can so they can do whatever they want, but I don't know if I want to let them do whatever they want.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have some parents, wealthy. Dan is one of the hardest working guys ever. I have some parents that are like some of the wealthiest families here that are giant mentors for me, and their kids are unbelievable people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then vice versa.
Yeah.
And then we have people that, have gone through hard times, and the kids kind of follow suit too. So I think that it's easy to go down that route, but I do think that it can be broken. And I'm a huge, and again, it's modeling. It's a huge thing. Tony Robbins too. It's like, learn from somebody else. I'm going to learn from you. I'm going to try to steal the things from my parents that I took. The Tanners, every single one of their kids is unreal, and how much they put into them. Like Holly and Mike have been like so good to me. You know what I mean? Any type of parent, like it's like, I'm going to try to pick the things that they have, because their kids are phenomenal. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like their parents obviously did something right.
And I'll bet you the common denominator, even if it isn't some of these families you're talking about, even if they're not Christian families, I bet you if you looked into that, one of the common denominators is the idea of being humble.
But, and I think faith is there.
Yeah.
Most of the ones that I have, even though if they're LDS or Catholic or something else, but the faith is huge.
Yep.
That is usually a common denominator. Not always, but usually.
Right. That's good.
But the humble one it's those kids the kids that I think that have the most success, maybe not get the biggest scholarship, but in the long term I've seen that have had the most success are always the ones that treat other kids good, are always good teammates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Can we switch gears for a minute?
Yeah.
So you came to me and you're like, hey, I think I want to make Augie my general manager.
Oh yeah.
And I said, you're nuts. Guy doesn't have the grit. He doesn't have the.
Wasn't loud like me.
He doesn't have it. I've had lots of general managers, and they're like, run over people, look in the rearview mirror, look in the dust, and you're like, no, I think he's got it. I said, I think you're wrong. No, I think he's got it. I'm going to make him move. I said, okay. And one of our deals, which is the same with anybody I work with, is one of my deals is, I think you do this too, is I can never say I told you so. It doesn't work. I mean, there's lots of times you've come back and like, hey, I tried to do it my own way. That didn't work. Can we go back and can you run that past me again? And I can't ever say I told you so. It doesn't work if that happens. And so, so you're like, you're going to go with Augie. I'm like, okay, all right. Let's meet again in 30 days. And I think I told Augie, I think we were meeting on something.
You've told this story.
You and Augie were also, and I looked at Augie and said, hey, I want you to know I didn't think you were the guy. You need to know that. I can tell you now, if I still had my business, I'd steal them from you.
Yeah. You know how many times I get told that?
He's the real McCoy. The real McCoy.
And
I got that wrong.
But I just knew. And again, I think it's two things. Number one is he's literally never said a negative thing about somebody. He's always he will do everything that he can to make other people better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think he has no idea he was even doing it. And he did it when he was a teammate. You know what I mean? He always was like the most loved teammate. Now, Augie has been through some crazy hard times that I don't need to bring on here, but like crazy hard times. I think he realizes like there are bigger things than us not hitting our numbers in that month. Doesn't mean that we're not going to go get them, but like there are bigger things than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People might be dealing with something, and he just has that knack. I think this is another reason why he was such a phenomenal and played pro baseball. And the other thing is like some people make things bigger than they are, and I have employees that do that. I've done it to where it's like, I got to make all these phone calls. I got to do when he breaks down to it's 3 phone calls. Augie just makes the 3 phone calls. He just does it. Yeah. It's just in front of him. It's like, hey, Augie, man, I need this ordered and this and this and this, man. Will you help me out? And it's literally like he texts me 10 minutes later, all done. Yeah. He literally had to make 2 emails and a phone call, and he just does it. Yeah. And whatever's in front of him, he just does. You know what I mean? And that's so easy but rare skill set.
There's something about him, and this is the best way for me to I was thinking about this. The best way for me to try to sum that up is, you know what the best baseball umpire is after a 9-inning game? Is you can't remember anything he did. That's the best baseball umpire.
I don't know if this is a good analogy, though, man.
No, I think
can't understand. You don't ever remember Augie?
No, it's not that.
He's the face of the company.
No, it's not that. Is you don't ever hear. There's never any drama.
Oh, never. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that baseball umpires. I've umpired. You've umpired. We all know them. I've done it. You've done it. We've all done it. Is like
I was left-handed. I didn't have to do it.
Okay, well that's good for you. You're lucky about that. The umpire makes it about himself, right? And you're throwing the coach out, and you're throwing a player out, and you're da-da-da-da-da. And there's so many ways to get around that where it doesn't have to have that result if you can just get your ego in check.
Yeah.
Right? And not make it about you. The best umpire is a guy who's the plate umpire? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of how Augie is like there's never any blow up. There's never a nuclear mushroom cloud. There's never a complaint. There's never, hey, I'm not coming back. There's never, hey, I got to quit. I can't work here anymore. There's never one. You never know. He just goes through the day making big decisions that a general manager makes, and there's never any drama.
Yeah.
That's just an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a gift.
And
I might go start a business and maybe just bring him along with me. I don't know.
I'd have to fire you.
You probably would.
And with it too, it's not like he doesn't stress. When you ask him about it too, it's like he still is worried about things. He still knows he needs to make things happen. I just think that it's his demeanor and how he goes about it. You know what I mean? And that's I've learned so much from him because I'm the opposite. My emotions on my sleeve. Like something's going wrong, I'm going to let you know, and it's going to be, and I'm going to make something bigger than it probably needed to be. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's helped me not have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, I think we got it.
Yeah.
You know? So
that's good.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah. But man, Steve, seriously, been a huge influence on me. Can't thank you enough. I'm sure, and I was talking with Robert about it too. He's like, I mean, we're gonna have to bring him back on eventually, and we might get into some X's and O's to see wherever this podcast goes. But I just thought I had to have you on here. You're one of the first guys I ever thought of to do it, and I know you'll never take money from me, but I don't know how else I could thank you. So, man, I really appreciate everything you've done for me.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that. How you thank me is I get to see this thing grow.
Yeah.
I get to see you doing the right things. I get to see you mentor up young men. I get to see, I mean, you remember the first time that we started talking, I can't even talk without one of these. A whiteboard. I can't. You know that. I can't even talk without being able to draw it.
Well, you grew up on a chalkboard, so I showed you a whiteboard.
Fair enough. That's all good. Now you see this, and I see a lot of the things that you and I have talked about in this business, and I'm really proud of you. And it's like I said, is the reason I was intrigued to work with you from the start was because you just were going to outwork it. There was no way you weren't going to outwork it. If you failed, it wasn't because you didn't work at it. That's kind of a rare thing. I think that's your mom and dad. And a big kudos to them for that too. And the other thing is you were just open to listening and trying anything. And so I'm really proud of you. And I don't know if I'm part of this place. I guess I am a part of this place, but I'm proud to be part of this place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, man, I appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yep. Love you, man.
Love you too.